to beautiful Palm Beach, Florida, the Breakers, where he's doffing the chapeau with his blue golf shirt, just like Ben Johnson was wearing under his Bears sweatshirt himself. There he is, Adam Hoge, joining us after his interview with the head coach of the Chicago Bears. Hoge, are you all right now? You look a whole lot better than you did 7 minutes ago.
Yes, I think we're in better shape here, boys. And yeah, can't complain too much about the weather. And shout out to Shady Rays. Thought I'd put him on for this fine interview with you guys. But yeah, fun conversation with Ben Johnson. And yeah, I really we can get into whatever you guys think is top of mind. But I'll just say this: like, I appreciated real answers to. Uh, I hope good questions. I tried to go in a different angle and get a little bit more, schemy. I'm not the only one talking to Ben Johnson down here, okay? Just, full transparency. So I tried to go a little bit of a different direction and get some answers that I think a lot of our viewers and listeners care about because I think we do a good job of getting into football stuff on the show, like the real football stuff. So I liked a lot of the stuff he had to say and thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, no, I thought you did a great job, and I know the chat did as well. And really, when you talk about like what Bears fans want to hear from, well, what do we talk about every day here on this show? What they're going to do with the number 10 pick. So to be able to get some insight about the running back class, some deep insight into the tight end Tyler Warren, and a take on arm length. And I know we're going to get into all that, but it was just, like you said, refreshing to hear his honest answers about each of those things.
Yeah, so let's start with running back. Because I think what's interesting in the Ashton Genty conversation is, because I asked him, basically what they had to see from Jahmyr Gibbs to make the leap that they did in Detroit. And his answer was, well, it wasn't that we necessarily looked at him as a running back going, that was worth a first round pick, as much as it's just an offensive weapon that's worthy of a first round pick. So with that in mind, and we've certainly seen that play out the way that they use Gibbs in that offense as a change of pace back, out of the backfield, throwing the ball to, and Ben Johnson's done a great job using him. So I think the question then becomes, okay, if those are the parameters that Ben Johnson sees for using the 10th overall pick on a running back, who again most likely probably won't even be there. But if he is, um, does Ashton Genty fit that idea? Is he more than just a running back? Is he somebody that Ben Johnson can use as a weapon all over the offense? And I think if the answer is yes in that room, then maybe there is a decent chance that he becomes a Bear.
So there's, a lot of noise about it. Our buddy Brad Biggs over in the Tribune wrote about he's hearing Genty a lot with the Bears. Jeff Schwartz, who's been on the show, he mocked Genty to the Bears today at 10. Yes, we don't know if he will be there. My good friend Al Harris, who's been on the show, he's been talking to me about Genty and wants the Bears to draft him badly. He loves him. I would like to personally apologize to everybody who watches this show because I've been sort of on the anti-Genty, take a running back later. I watched a lot of tape on my vacation or YouTube, whatever you want to call it. I am in on Genty. I have flipped the corner. The dude is exactly what he's talking about. He is a weapon. This offense needs weapons. They don't have enough in my mind. So, but I hear it both ways. Like he talked about Tyler Warren too. So to me, it's like I think he looked at this offense and solidified up front. And he wants another weapon to add, whether it's at tight end and or at running back. Somebody, some dynamic. You talked about the slot receiver too, but that's what I'm hearing is that I think he wants to add somebody who is dynamic and scares the living daylights out of the defense.
Well, look, we essentially talked about Ashton Genty without actually naming him. We did the same thing with Will Campbell, and then directly about Tyler Warren, he addressed that. But I mean, my takeaway from all three of those players we talked about today is, I'm sure he did this by design to make it come off as, the Bears would be interested in all three, because then you're not. So it's a good job of giving real answers to some tough questions about prospects without actually giving anything away. I mean, if our takeaway here is that the Bears would be interested in all three, then Ben Johnson did his job in that regard. But I still give credence to his answers. So when we talk about Tyler Warren, yeah, super interesting story in there. I appreciate him sharing that. They got in a room. and it wasn't just Warren. That's just the one I asked him about. But he said they looked at like the top 20 prospects. It was basically the top guys in the front office and the coordinators and the head coach. And they talked about Tyler Warren, and it was actually Dennis Allen, the defensive coordinator, who stood up in the room and was like, "Man, this guy would be a nightmare to try to have to stop." Um, and as I've already said on the show and basically confirmed with Ben himself today, like I just can just imagine him drooling over Tyler Warren's tape and the things that he could potentially do in the offense. So that was super interesting. And then when it came to Will Campbell, just to kind of tie up the prospects we talk about, I loved his answer. I mean, whether it means they view Will Campbell as a left tackle or not, his answer to that question, which was essentially how much do you care about arm length on your offensive line? Watch the tape first, then worry about the measurables. So, and that's what Ben said. He's like, well, I like to watch the tape without knowing anything. Like, just can this guy play football? Does he play the position well? And then if he's watching the tape and he's like, you know what? This guy's having some trouble with leverage. What's his arm length? Oh, that's why it's too short. Well, then there's that's how this should be done. I think in most cases it is. But anybody, and I'm sure there are some teams that will just have him crossed off, Will Campbell, as a left tackle because of how his arms measured. I hope they're watching the tape too, because in my opinion, he is the exception to the rule on when it comes to arm length and left tackle.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting talking about those prospects. But then I think the other aspect while we're sticking to the offense here was how much he went into detail of how important the slot receiver position is in his offense and how the ball always seems to find its way to the slot. Obviously, they brought in Olamide Zaccheaus, but we also, talked about this last Friday where, they get a top 30 visit with Isaiah Bond, who, when we talked to Fran Duffy, somebody he said could be the Jamison Williams type weapon for this offense. So I think that is very interesting to see where they're going to go with this slot receiver position moving forward.
Yeah, by the way, Isaiah Bond, our Bears 100 came out this morning, and I have him. That was one of the probably handful of players that I found myself significantly disagreeing on with Fran Duffy. And I would probably encourage you guys to side towards Fran on that one over me. But I like Isaiah Bond, and I think Fran had him down in the 70s, and I pushed him up way higher. I want to say perhaps I think it might have been even like 35 or something. So, but that's going to probably come down to the character. Some of the stuff we heard last week. I think as a player, he's really, really good and could be dangerous. Getting back to what Ben Johnson was talking about, it was kind of, I think, intertwined to my next question, which was about him, how much he uses condensed formations. And I loved his answer on that too. It's just he thinks it opens up the route tree because when guys are starting so far away from the ball near the sideline, it actually, in a weird way, actually condenses the space towards the sideline and the amount of field that you actually have to use to run your routes. So by condensing the formations and kind of running it inward outside, it opens things up. And I think that's one of the reasons why in his offense, it didn't surprise me he gave me that answer, that the slot becomes such an important spot to be able to do a lot of different things, but especially threaten the field vertically, which I do think Zaccheaus has the ability to do. And obviously Ben mentioned in that answer that he feels like Zaccheaus can do.
Yep.
Adam Hoge from his palatial hotel, The Breakers in Palm Beach, Florida, at the owners' meeting.
See, now this actually is a Hoge mansion. My actual house is not, but yes, this resort is ridiculous. I mean, and by the way, definitely not where I'm staying, for the record, at all.
I was about to say,
I've never actually. No, never stayed at the hotel where the owners' meetings actually are. I'm not sure any media member actually has. I don't even think Larry Mayer stays at the hotel where the Bears stay at.
I was going to say, if that's where he was, I was fully intending on pranking him tonight.
My first Super Bowl with Fanside, I stayed at the Roadway Inn, and it was amazing. You belong at the Breakers, so you should get in there. Hey, let's rewind back to the start of your conversation and the Caleb part of it. under center. And then you mentioned, hey, did you go back and watch the USC tape at all? And he's like, yeah, not really. I mean, maybe a little, but we just focused in on last year. What was your read of all of that?
Yeah, I mean, my read is kind of what Braggs had to say off the top. Is it is kind of annoying that there's not a ton of FaceTime between the head coach, or if your head coach isn't an offensive guy, the offensive coordinator, and the quarterback. And not to get completely off topic here, but the conversation that the NFLPA has been having about potentially getting rid of the spring OTAs and adding it onto the top of training camp, I I I would think that there'd have to be, one of the many concerns the teams would have on their side of it would be exactly what we're talking about, and the ability to get FaceTime and eventually um, the ability to get on the grass and actually run practices. So you know for the fans that might not be aware or kind of forgot, typically you have these phases of the off season where you got to build it up. You can start to have meetings, strength and conditioning. It can only be a few times a week. And then eventually you can add that up to the OTA practices that you're allowed starting in May. The Bears are going to be able to get an early mini camp this year because they have a new head coach. It's only going to be 3 days of practice, but at least it'll be 3 days of practice in April. And they're able to start earlier, April 7th, as opposed to a few weeks. I think it's a 2 week head start, I want to say, by having a head coach. So at least they're a new head coach, so they're getting that at least. But long way of me saying, I mean, I think my biggest takeaway from the questions I asked and got answered about Caleb is just they don't know each other that well yet. Phone calls, some things that they're allowed to do. But until they actually get in there and can really start installing the offense and seeing what Caleb is capable of, and maybe just comfortable with is a better way of saying it. They're a long ways away from figuring that out still.
So Hoge. We all know. Wait, we can't hear him.
He's muted himself.
Oh, he muted it. Okay.
He muted
Sorry,
himself.
I got you. Can I just give a quick shout out real quick?
Yes,
okay.
you can.
Just wanted to shout out our teammates, Zach Stevens from DMVR, Clarence Hill from DLLS, Bo Wolf and Zach Berman also came. But got a lot of help behind the scenes today to help get that Ben Johnson interview filmed and looking and sounding the way it did. Of course, with Steven too, doing a great job editing everything we basically fixing everything we sent in. So yeah, just a lot of good teamwork there. And I also, Harm, you know who I got to see last night?
Who did you get to
I
see
think you'll
last night,
appreciate
Adam?
this. Serena Williams.
Wow.
You serious?
Yeah. Serena Williams
Come on.
and Caitlin Clark
Come on.
were here giving they had a big presentation last night. I didn't get to go to the presentation, but they were, they're promoting flag football. It's coming up in the Olympics here in a couple of years, and they're really trying to push women's flag football, which is, I think, awesome for the sport, awesome for football in general. And they brought in Caitlin Clark and Serena Williams to help speak at the event, just, importance of women's sports and getting young girls involved. And so, yeah, I was standing in the lobby here after I got here shortly yesterday, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, that's Caitlin Clark just walking by. And then about 5 minutes later, wait a minute, that's Serena Williams. And I'm like, man, Carm would have been really jealous.
Carm is really jealous. Carm is that's great, Adam. I'm not I'm not jealous at all of any of the things you've gotten to do in the last 24 hours. That's awesome. I hope you told her I said hello and that I love the movie, and King Richard's amazing. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. That's awesome. And let it be known that, I was one of the first people in on Caitlin. If you search the internet, there is an interview with me and Caitlin when she was just a sophomore at the old University of Iowa. I was ahead of the game, damn it. Love Caitlin Clark. But more importantly, you've probably been preparing for this interview, I don't know, 2 weeks, a month, something like that. And when you got to the point of your prep where you decided, am I going to say we on that ass. What was the conversation in your head? Because I was completely surprised by that, Adam Hoge, and I really respect you for your decision.
So okay, let's go inside the interview a little bit. So yeah, this morning, so I knew I wanted to bring up what Jahmyr Gibbs told me at the Super Bowl, which we have a clip out there. It's on on CHGO YouTube channel, and I was like, "What's the best way of getting Ben Johnson's reaction to this?" And one of the things I wanted to do was just play the clip for him because I figured we could edit it into the interview and it would have been fine. But I didn't want to create any more work, and I had to end up using my phone, obviously, to film the thing. So it didn't really work out that way. So then it put me in a position where, and I actually had the quote written down in my notebook. And I'm like, I guess the only way to do this is just to say what he said. And that's what I chose to do. I don't regret it. And yeah, that's the story behind that. But yeah, that was you thought that was the best moment of the interview.
I did. I absolutely did.
He was cracking up.
I thought it was hysterical. I don't know how to say this to you, but Jahmyr Gibbs said, "We on that ass, though." And I was like,
yeah,
wow, Hoge way out of his comfort zone. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, what would you if you were Hoge?
Yeah, no, it's definitely in my vocabulary.
Well, yes, but saying it to a Bears head coach, I mean, that's a stepping out a little. I mean, you started the interview like, "Hey there, Ben. I'm just to let you know I'm a real nerd like you too, and I'm going to ask football-y questions." 5 seconds later, you're saying we on that ass though.
Yeah, you got to cover a lot of ground when you get 15 minutes with the head coach. I don't know how to.
No, you did a great job. I'm curious, Braggs, if that was you and you had that in your notebook, how would you have done it?
I mean, I loved it. I mean, I think we should play that clip for every week of football, whoever we're going up against. We on that ass. No, that was great. And then I thought the other thing too, got a little peek behind the curtain. I mean, we're going to see it here soon. I don't know if you guys have access to Hallis Hall when the team meets next week, but where you said, talked about shit talking, and, Ben said there's going to be plenty of that at training camp, obviously going with the theme of you dropping some curse words in the interview. But even so, I still enjoyed that Ben said, "Hey, yeah, I do have a crazy side to me, and you'll see it at camp a little bit."
Hoge, I believe, is back with us.
Yeah, I got you guys. Yeah, I mean, and I've kind of heard that about him. So, but he wasn't really featured in Hard Knocks, really at all. I mean, I can't remember a scene with him in it. But I think any of us who watched that a few seasons ago saw how competitive those practices were. So you kind of knew he had to be in all of that. So yeah, I actually asked. I made a request to see if I could sit in on the team meeting next week. They told me no. So no, Greg, I won't be in the team meetings. But we should get access. No. We should get access to the mini camp. I don't exactly know when it is, but we should get access to that in a few weeks.
That's what I was wondering. I thought that was next week. Was not just a team meeting, but I thought they'd do like a couple practices too.
Well, listen, the Bears are better off the more Hogs around Hallis Hall, so we're trying to make that work. Yeah. All right, Hoge, did you tell Ben that you were going to be wearing a blue shirt so he would wear one too? I
gotta be honest, I didn't even notice he was wearing a blue shirt. I just saw he had his Bears quarter zip on.
Underneath, he had a blue shirt. You guys are adorable.
Well,
I think you made good inroads. Is this? I mean, one interview in. Is this your favorite Bears head coach?
You loved Nagy. He was great with you guys.
Yeah, he just
well, I was gonna say, yeah, I think no, I'm not frozen. I was just thinking. At least I don't think I'm frozen. That's the thing. I don't want to rush a judgment on this because, like, I think there's revisionist history on how good Nagy actually was with the media. I will say this about Ben so far. Like, he definitely is more in the Nagy mold of you can have a normal conversation with him. He seems like a relatively normal human being, like somebody you could just, meet at a bar and have a beer with, and get along with. And I'm, I don't I don't think all the Bears head coaches that have covered have been that way, even if they were, likable. I mean, Flus was very likable, but it was definitely different. So we're off to a good start. I'll just say this, Carm. We're off to a good start with Ben Johnson on a number of different levels. Because I think not only it's great, it's great that he's good with the media. Ultimately, you got to win football games, but I think there's a lot to be optimistic about from that standpoint too. And then the more, this is what I really haven't experienced since 2018 when Nagy was the new head coach and they did win a lot of football games. But, when people win, they're in a better mood, right? Like, I'm sure Greg's not in as good of a mood today as he was on Friday before Purdue played. But
this
when
guy
you, when you, just like I was the week before before the BYU game. It's just normal.
Yeah. I mean, Gregory, I got to tell you, you should be so proud of me that at midnight or 1 a.m, whenever it was that you lost that game, and I was sitting there up in Boyne Mountain, Michigan, having a great vacation. I saw that happen. I thought to myself to text you and say, like, how do you not guard the inbounds, man? What, did they not see Craig Elo back in, but I didn't do that. I just sat silent and, clicked off the TV and went to bed. And, I even felt sorry for you for even a half of a tenth of a second. But yes, you're right, Hoge. Back to you.
It was a miserable moment.
If Ben Johnson's not in a good mood now, we're in real trouble because this mood's not going to last when things get a lot more competitive and the Bears go through the inevitable roller coaster that they're going to go through. You would think this year, which hopefully will end with everybody with their arms up and smiling at the end of it. But it ain't going to be all Rocky Road ice cream, blue shirts, and we get on that ass though, smiles the rest of the way. There's gonna be some uncomfortableness, you would think.
Yeah, well, some would argue that was uncomfortable.
No,
well,
yeah, a good kind of uncomfortable.
By the way, there's plenty more coverage coming from here in Florida too the next few days. Tomorrow we get to talk to Ben Johnson as a group. The coaches' breakfast, which is a little bit of a disaster this morning with the AFC coaches. So I hope maybe we can end up with better results tomorrow. But and then Ryan Poles will be talking tomorrow as well, and then Kevin Warren and George McCaskey before the week's over as well. So there's a lot of Bears coverage coming the next couple of days.
Yeah, hopefully you don't choke on that coach's breakfast, Hoge.
What happened? I missed it.
So the only other question I have from this interview is, when we talk about the obvious at 10, but do you think maybe, obviously, he's talking about the main guys, but do you think from what you heard today that there's a chance that the sleeper pick at 10 is defensive tackle Kenneth Grant, pride of Maryville, Indiana, just with the way he talked about the 3 technique?
First of all, I did not understand that reference about the coach's breakfast, so just for the record. But that would seem like a little bit of a reach to me at this point. He is definitely in the category of players I still want to watch closer. So he debuted, I think, still in the 30s in our Bears 100. I will say this, though, like, in terms of the idea, I think if you were to go back to March 31st, 2 years ago, most had Darnell Wright as, somebody that would probably be late first round pick. And by the time we got to draft night, that was my prediction on who the Bears were going to end up picking. It still felt like maybe a little bit of a reach there, but the point of all that is, and we've heard it time and time again. I had a conversation with our guy Matt Verderum actually just a few hours ago, and we're both like kind of in agreement that like everybody you talk to in the league right now, it's like once you get past 15, it seems like between 15 and 40, everyone seems to think that like the talent's relatively the same. So to say that somebody right now is being viewed as in the 20s or 30s can't slip up much higher, I think that would be naive. I think we're going to see a lot of surprises in the first round, to be honest with you. So I wouldn't completely rule that out, Greg.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And hey, if everybody's off the board, I know everybody, myself included, would love Mason Graham to fall to 10. But if everybody's off the board, maybe a trade back, and then you fall into that 15 and back range. That's where a guy like Kenneth Grant might make more sense. But great job on the interview. Yes, so my joke of the choke on the breakfast was because of your Purdue comments. Outside of that,
you want to die at the breakfast, Hoge. That's the general mood of Bragg right now.
Well, let's at least agree that I wait until I'm done with all the work I have to do down here, and then I'll do that for you. That's so fair. At least CHGO doesn't suffer.
That's fair. Get a few more clips, then you can choke.
What you going golfing this afternoon? What are you doing? What's on the docket? What's Hoge get to do today? Hang with Serena?
Well, yeah, I think a dinner with Serena is no, my wife is here, so I'm gonna go find her. She's probably sitting on a beach somewhere. So we'll go find her. We'll probably, get some food. There's an NFL reception tonight, which is always fun, and we'll try to avoid Larry Mayer as much as possible, and then we'll just enjoy the rest of the evening.
I mean, are you at any point going to thank me for this Ben Johnson interview and getting you into the right mode? Because I really think that your whole process started when Carm came through and got you the best Bulls tickets you've ever had, got to take your son. You got to learn NBA basketball via the eyes of yours truly in a way that you never had before, and it set you up for the interview.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that has to do with the interview, but as you were asking for credit for it, I was actually thinking the same thing. I was gonna thank you for the great, outstanding tickets Saturday night, right behind the Mavs bench. Unfortunately, the Bulls played horribly in that game. 19 turnovers, I think. But and then they made my son cry. So some might claim that you made my son cry.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I'm saying.
It was awful.
The Bulls have had these amazing games the last 3 weeks, and then you sent them to the one game they lose.
And he was legit crying walking out of I tried to get in there as Uncle Carm, like, this game doesn't matter. It's better for them to lose. Like,
draft equity.
No, don't worry about it. You saw it was a good game. It's fine. Michael Finley was there.
And then, of course, it was pouring rain outside, too, which he didn't like. And so we get in the car, and I'm like, I'm sorry, buddy. You just got so wet. He's like, but mostly I'm just sad that we lost. And I'm like, all right, I guess you are my son.
Yeah, well, that's a good effort by James Hoge. All right, Hoge, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Great job today. Be proud of yourself. The chat loved it. A million comments about Hoge got on that ass in that interview, which was hysterical. Some people are really on fire today in the chat. You're doing a great job. So know that you're getting a big round of applause from back here, buddy.
All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate everybody watching, listening. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. And please check out the Bears 100 because so much work has been put in behind the scenes from a lot of people. Not just Fran and, me ranking, but there's so many people behind the scenes that have added to it, including you guys as well. So that's all up there for CHGO diehards right now. And there's a lot of great draft content out there all over the country, but nobody has this type of database that you can sort through and go through all the time that's continuously updated. So I hope people check it out. Thanks again. And I'll be on with you guys tomorrow. So we'll talk tomorrow after hearing from Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles in the morning.
All right. Hopefully get some interesting stuff. Great job once again. There goes Hoge.
I've been clapping a lot
off to his roadway in down the street. Shout out Roadway Inn down at the Breakers Hotel in Palm Beach, Florida.
We all silly like the mayor.